Hello, and thank you for attending today's webinar, From Omnichannel to Optichannel, Redefining Personalized Engagement in Life Sciences, presented by PharmaForceIQ and Fierce Pharma. My name is Kelly Hogan. I'm a conference producer with Fierce Life Sciences, and I'll also be your moderator for the day. Before we begin, just a few quick housekeeping items. On the screen, you'll see a couple panels. One will be our speaker bios. So you'll meet our speakers in just a moment, but to learn more about them, feel free to dive into that speaker bio panel. Similarly, I encourage you to explore the handouts panel for more information about our sponsor, PharmaForceIQ. If one of those panels does close, simply go to the top navigation bar to reopen it. The webinar is being recorded and will be available on demand within 24 hours. And finally, over the course of the panel discussion, we encourage you to submit questions to our speakers, and we'll try to get to as many of those questions at the end of the discussion before our time today is done. Thank you so much. And moving right along, I'd like to welcome each of our panelists to introduce themselves, beginning with Ben Clark.
Hi there, I'm Ben Clark. I lead the US Omnichannel capability at Jazz Pharmaceuticals. I've been here about 2 years this fall and have been honestly in one form of Omnichannel or another for almost 25 years. And I say one form or another because back then it was sort of like digital media and web analytics, and it somehow evolved into a data-driven orchestration of customer experiences. So hi everyone.
Wonderful, thank you. Saraiyah Hatter.
Hi, everyone. My name is Saraiyah Hatter. I'm an Omnichannel Engagement Manager here at PharmaForceIQ. I manage campaigns, both commercial and medical, oncology, non-oncology, small pharma, large pharma, you name it. What we do is we partner with these clients to engage HCPs and patients more quickly and more effectively. And the way that we do that is with our real-time engagement platform. Our goal is to essentially streamline planning from identifying the right audience to measuring the campaign impact. And the way we do that is by using that real-world data to make sure that our Optichannel approach actually drives results. So super excited for this conversation today and to speak to you all.
Great, thank you. Nick Umnov.
Hey there, Nick Umnov. I'm the director of Omnichannel at Bristol Myers Squibb in the US. And I've been working in Omnichannel for a number of years and also in brand marketing from small to large pharma. And before that, I worked a number of years in digital marketing in agencies and also in tech startups. I've had experience working globally, including in Southeast Asia markets and Latin America. Happy to be here, and my opinions are my own and not reflective of my current or past employers.
Well, thank you all for being here and to our audience for listening in. Let's go ahead and dive into our discussion. Omnichannel marketing has many definitions, which have been debated and discussed since its inception. However, one consistency among them is a clear goal: to optimize HCP and patient engagement and increase conversion rate, which is why today we are focusing on Optichannel, hearing from industry leaders on ways to strengthen omnichannel strategies and fulfill the expectations for what it can do. We will deep dive into solving key challenges with the help of evolving technology and the breakdown of data silos. An essential component of Omnichannel is building a proper cadence for HCP engagement. Panelists, can you share what this meant for your roles 5 years ago compared to now, and how technology is being utilized to improve accuracy? Nick, let's begin with you.
Great, thank you. Yeah, so 5 years ago, I think Omnichannel, was really gaining popularity. The job title, the department, the capability, the platforms. There was, growing experiences, and rightfully so, because I think really pharma had to catch up to the consumer world. And then there were, tools purchased, and there was a lot of C-suite interest, and there was this, desire to really activate Omnichannel or messaging across every channel compliantly. And the initial results were very promising. Engagement went up, and we were just seeing a high volume of messaging across emails, media, rep-triggered emails, all going out. But I think now 5 years later, over time, we start to see a bit of cracks in that. So HCPs, I think, were a bit overwhelmed, and a lot of our customers were overwhelmed with that kind of messaging. There was some customization, but that wasn't really the emphasis. It was just to go, I think, out in a high volume. And then we started to see those cracks, which would come in the form of maybe the sales team saying something like, "Oh, the messaging is a little bit off from the way I'm communicating with my HCP on a day-to-day," or maybe we see higher opt-out rates. So I think the lesson now is that more volume isn't always better. So I think today it's much different with AI and the behavioral data that's coming in. The cadence of just really being around volume is gone. It's better to do it now with relevance and good timing. And so to me, Optichannel means being more selective with messaging, which channel, thinking about very clearly about like suppression rules, being very granular about and intentional with my HCP marketing, being very focused on making sure that I'm always segmenting and making sure that I understand what the segments want and then reaching them that way. And I think a good part of it is, with AI, that can help you with a lot of behavioral mapping, that can help you with quick analytics, and then that can help you with AI-driven touch points. So it becomes much more of a kind of choreographed dance, reaching the HCPs on a very individual level and not inundating them with across every single channel. And even sometimes choosing just a few channels, because that can drive a lot more value than inundating across every single one.
Excellent. Any thoughts, Ben?
Sure. I think Nick hit a really good point that 5 years ago, pharma was working to catch up with other industries in terms of experience orchestration. And as a function of that, we launched experiences that, this is sort of opposite of omnichannel, but bear with me. We launched experiences that were data-driven, but often didn't communicate with each other. And so all of our cadence rules or all of our exposures were really business rules driven, and you had to make a ton of assumptions. Today, if you have the right infrastructure, you can orchestrate experiences across all channels at the same time. And while there are business rules that help guide sort of best-in-class interactions, there's so much more data and technology available to ensure that you're much more specific. So you can really find that right moment to engage. And you can use data like affinity data to understand the right channel and tactic for each individual audience member. And you also can use the power of AI to learn the optimal reach and frequency for an individual's experience so that you're not sort of overwhelming them with data. And I think, to me anyway, that's really where we go next, is continuing to lean in both data from affinity and from orchestration and cadence, but also figuring out the right technology so that we continue to, this one's weird, continue to deliver optimal experiences. And I want to say something about optimal experiences. That doesn't mean that HCP or patient says, I really don't like banner ads when they come up this amount of times, or sometimes emails bother me. That doesn't necessarily mean optimal experience. Optimal experience is defined as getting medicine to patients who otherwise wouldn't have in the most efficient way possible. And I really think we need to kind of keep honing in on the most efficient way to do that.
Very well said. Saraiyah, we've touched on the tools and data necessary to create this cadence. Can you share from your point of view what those tools and data are that are necessary to execute this task?
Yeah, absolutely. I think both Nick and Ben brought up some great points. Number one, you don't want your target audience to feel bombarded. Just going back a little bit, 5 years ago, we were also in the middle of the COVID-19 lockdown, so limitations on that personal promotion piece. So I think a lot of companies took digital channels, and whatever channel that they can get their hands on, they just started sending materials to HCPs, and you can feel bombarded. And to Ben's point, if they don't talk to each other or communicate to each other, data is going to show that your assets are going to get fatigued or that the HCPs are going to unsubscribe. So it's not about the quantity of engagements, it's really about the quality. And to get those quality engagements and to really, really execute Optichannel, in my opinion, I think you need 3 tools. First and foremost, you need the trigger data sources. Clinical decision triggers coming from claims data or lab data or predictive modeling. All this is going to help you identify who is the right HCP and the right time. You want to make sure you're targeting them before they're making a treatment decision, or when they're doing that initial diagnosis, or when they're testing for that genetic mutation. Number 2 is you're going to need that affinity data. Ben alluded to it, but this data comes from a variety of sources, from email, endemic display, social media, EHRs, field reps. And that's going to tell you where, when, and with what message to target the HCPs. And then last but not least, you're going to need those integrations across data sources and those channels, because that's going to allow you to deploy in real time, to communicate across channels in real time, to share with the sales reps in real time, and then to finally measure in real time. So I would say succinctly, those are the 3 tools you'll need.
Excellent. And how important, Saraiyah, is that real-time monitoring when you're looking at the conversion performance?
I think so critical. I think that's one of the best parts of our platform. Our clients, what we're seeing is what they love to see, and they like to understand very quickly what's working, what's not working. You can look at what channel is performing well, what digital tactic is performing well, what banner ad or email is performing well. So you don't have to wait months and months for that quarterly report or that monthly report. You can kind of identify trends very quickly, monitor them, and then quickly make changes and optimize your plan, your media plan in real time. And that's what's very critical when we're talking about spending our dollars very wisely. Audience behavior changes. Like, we're in the middle of an AI revolution, and we see how quickly things are changing, and we have to keep up. So the way we do that is by having that real-time engagement data at our fingertips, so that we can quickly shift budgets and business rules or triggers, so that ultimately we can be proactive instead of being reactive.
Excellent. Thank you. Ben, I'd love to hear from you on how you are using metrics to assess your strategy and seeing how well you're able to keep up with those optimal experiences.
Sure. I think our strategy starts from building out what we like to call a customer journey, or sort of a journey or a blueprint, right? And ultimately, I'll get to the metrics, I promise, but this is important. What we do is we say, okay, here's the patient journey, here's how they engage with an HCP, here's the moments along the journey that we need to own, and here's the signals that we should probably look for. So that probably look for piece is where metrics become really important. And then we sort of line up the right content based on segment or based on participation in a journey, and we launch. And so our strategic approach is built through a wonderful framework, and it's always aligned in brand goals and objectives. But at the beginning, aside from channel affinity for an audience member and probably content, because content usually comes with a lot of market research, we're using really great guesses to figure out what those data points should be that drive engagement at meaningful times. And we have to listen pretty quickly to see, were we right? Is that the right data point? Is that data point aligned to the right content? Are we making it so that HCP or patient goes from point A to point B to point C to point D and ultimately converts? Or are we missing something somewhere? So we do look at front-end metrics pretty regularly and quickly to see at a specific signal level what's working and what's not working. And then sort of down the road, give it like 60, 90 days, we look at scripts to see what happens there as well. So in real time, we're often making slight tweaks, but the real decisioning comes when we see whether or not business outcomes change. I will say the only gotcha to that is if there was a signal that had horrible engagement, both from digital experiences and from next best action, we obviously would want to address that more quickly than waiting 60 days to see if some sort of patient outcome happened. But we don't see that too much, right? Yeah, you actually see a myriad of engagements and a myriad of reasons of why people engage. And you see different content metrics as well. And so to me, that early stuff is like, let's make sure it's not really broken. Let's make sure we pay attention to trends, but let's make the quote unquote tough or optimization decisions on that on a quarterly basis. And Saraiyah, that's right? Like we do it about quarterly where we go in and say like, that's not going to work. Or, oh, that's really, really great. Do more of this. Or have you ever thought of this? And then what we do is we compare that data with all of our field engagements to ensure that we're seeing the same thing happen, both from personal and non-personal where there is overlap, so that we can pull through those insights on all sides of it.
Wonderful. Nick, they mentioned having a quarterly kind of review. Can you share any feedback or thoughts on what Ben and Saraiyah have mentioned, and then a little bit about how often you are reevaluating your HCP journey?
That sounds definitely right. I like Ben's health check approach, and definitely use that as well. Using those leading indicators to see how, and trends, just to see how everything's performing, and then you have to wait for your data to come in on a quarterly basis, or once it kind of, or maybe a little bit more, especially if you're using like a Crossix or something like that, it could be like 6 months. But yeah, I'm totally aligned with that. I think the way I think about also the reevaluating the journeys, especially from the HCP side, is with a few caveats, like maybe emails looking more frequently, like opt-out rates, or programmatic campaigns looking at those less frequently, because we want those banners to really kind of make their impact. So you don't want to just react to programmatic banner campaigns too quickly. You want to get them there for like several months to really have the audience impact. But overall, outside of those, I would probably say reevaluating on a quarterly is really good. I think it works well. Just make sure that you're also bringing in a lot of field insights. I've been trying now because from some of my launch brand experience recently, is to look at things a bit more on a monthly basis. And the only reason I do that is because I think when you're in a launch brand, you may be trying to change some of the behaviors of target audiences. So you may want to link up with your market research data, then you launch your Omni campaigns, and then you quickly check in to see if you're moving the needle, if you're getting HCPs to kind of engage with the content that would be indicative of a behavioral change, and then thinking more about like efficacy. So for maybe like a brand that's a little bit more mature, definitely quarterly, but then for a launch brand, it could even be 3 to 5 weeks.
Great. Anything to add before we move on to our next question?
Yeah, I mean, I think the other piece is that, and I like some of the questions I think from Cole in the chats, like, kind of how to think about AI in this. I think a good way to think about bringing AI into this is just to have also what Ben said, a good framework, right? So if you think about one defined framework for your brand that you understand across every channel, and you align with all your teams of, what is a light engagement, like just the reach, what is a deeper engagement, and then what is like a really deep engagement. And then you align that with all your partners, and you could feed that into your AI engine or into AI tools. And then when everyone's aligned on that framework, then I think you can have some success leveraging AI. So then the AI engine can learn, follow suit, make its own recommendations, or give you recommendations back. But without that framework, I think it would be very challenging, and there could be a lot of kind of mismatch of data, and it could confuse an engine as well. So that's like priority for me.
Great point. Thank you. All right. Well, for our next question, we have alluded to this a little bit, but I wanted to dive into that coordination between omnichannel marketing and our field teams. So another essential component of omnichannel is coordination between field teams, sales teams, and marketing teams. Panelists, what opportunities are being lost by allowing these teams to operate in silos? Ben, what are your thoughts?
I want to first start out by saying, when I think of omnichannel, I think of all the channels. And so I like to think of personal promotion as part of omnichannel. or at least enabling personal promotion as part of Omnichannel, right? Because there's a lot more that the field does than react to the experiences we're able to orchestrate. But if one is not able to orchestrate an experience across all of the channels that we have the ability to do that with, and so hopefully that's sort of non-personal promotion, inclusive of CRM, that includes personal promotion, that also can include medical and market access. If we're not doing that, the biggest problem that I see is that our customers get over inundated with communication, with meetings, and with requests to engage. And while the beauty of Omnichannel to me is sort of that right message, right time, right content, it helps a rep do better, it surrounds it with digital, that's really, really important. But like at the most basic core function is to ensure that our customers are ultimately experiencing our brand in the most meaningful way possible, in the most coordinated way possible, and showing them that we respect their time and respect the kinds of things that they need to consume based on their needs. And if you can't cross all those sort of boundaries together and cross sort of implement, you run the risk of really, really delivering a poor experience and maybe not the best reflection of a brand. And when I say brand, I mean manufacturer brand, not necessarily the specific drug, right? Because if you're orchestrating 11, 15 different therapies, you can see that you can really do too much.
And Saraiyah, from your point of view, how can organizations bridge the gap in these communications?
I would say two ways. First is making sure you're quickly sharing that data to those sales reps, and then two, making sure you're training the reps so they know what that data is and what they're being asked to do. What we do is we can sync into those types of platforms like Aviva and share information on engagement or on triggers, like on an hourly basis. So it kind of helps to eliminate that gap. And it does make a difference. So I saw Connor's question come in the chat of, beyond the semantics, how are we quantifying the strategic value of Optichannel versus Omnichannel, which historically meant that seamless experience across all the channels. It's a true difference, because what we end up doing is we tell the sales rep, hey, Dr. John Smith just engaged with this banner or just click through on this email. And then we're sending that to the sales rep. So now the sales rep can come in and they can either reinforce that message, or they can send an RTE, or they can, discuss the next message in that cadence that that HCP needs to hear. And to your secondary question, does that translate into better ROI and HCP satisfaction? The short answer is yes. I won't say the proof is in the pudding, but the proof is in the data. For a couple of my brands, I would say two I have in mind, we're seeing month to month, anywhere from 30 to 40% of prescribers engage with only digital before they write a script, but we're seeing anywhere from 50 to 58% engage with digital and a sales rep before writing a script. So making sure that those are orchestrated, making sure that your personal and your non-personal, making sure they're speaking to each other. What we're seeing is we are seeing that script lift when it is done properly.
Great. Nick, anything to add? Has this been a similar experience? Are you working to bridge those gaps as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think if there's a gap, right? It could lead to a lot of I think what Ben was discussing earlier, which is really good, is just kind of like a confusion about the brand, loss of trust about the brand. It could be like an email that could go out and it's an awareness email to an HCP, but the rep maybe already gave that person a sample. So then the HCP could be like, well, why the heck am I getting this awareness email when I'm already a believer, and I'm ready for the next step? So that's not a good use of my time. I don't appreciate that. And I think that's the key to really having that. At the same time, you have, I guess I always think of it like this. The field has real-time insights on what's landing well. Marketing has to support that. and we don't want to send the wrong message at the wrong time. At the same time, marketing has a lot of ability to have those early leads and digital signals that can boost the rep outreach. They can give them new leads, and then we want to get that to the sales team very quickly, because we don't want to miss that moment and that opportunity when an HCP is like learning about something new and they're really excited about it, and then we want to get that to them, and then have the HCP maybe visit them, discuss them, or even do a quick call, a remote call that could be very impactful. And I think the way I think about all this is that I kind of have like 3 qualifiers for what a good kind of feedback loop also is in terms of between the marketing and sales. As I think about speed, how quickly can we get these insights? How quickly can we get back to the next best action? And then I think about signal quality. Is it good kind of feedback? Is it useful kind of metric? And then the last one is actionability. What can I do with that metric to drive the next step, to support the rep in the field with my marketing, and then to make sure that they get to that HCP at the right time and really convert them.
Excellent. Ben, coming back your way, overall, how can marketers ensure they are equipped with all the necessary data needed to make these informed decisions and receive that information from the reps in that time where they can make use of it?
It's a tough question. So I'm going to talk about it in 2 different ways. I think that you need to invest in the right capabilities and technology in order to fulfill that obligation. But I think you can buy and build all the beautiful things, but if you don't take an opportunity to take a strategic approach, then they sort of go on you. So I think it's really important that when you're thinking of a brand goal and objective, when you build that blueprint or that customer journey for personal and non-personal promotion, you ask really deep and good questions about the kinds of information that is needed to accomplish whatever it is we're trying to do. And then I think you go on a hunt to determine whether or not that data is available and where it is, and then you buy it or you make it. I also think that constantly challenging yourself to think outside of what currently exists is super helpful on both the marketing and field side. But one of the things that I would love to focus on is the value of qualitative data from the HCP, the reps when they see HCPs, right? Or from MSLs when they talk to their KOLs. So really tracking all of that call stuff that happens and making sure you write it down and making sure you record it and making sure we can turn that information into meaningful insights to share back. That's super insightful. Like if we're orchestrating a campaign when, I don't know, there's a new patient diagnosed, which is probably the most simple signal you'll ever look for, right? New patient diagnosed. So we have a bunch of content that goes out based on your channel, tactic affinity, based on your segment. You also shoot that first alert to field and medical. So then they make appointments and talk. If one, those folks don't know that their customers are also getting a non-personal surround, right? They may come in with a dearth of information that's not necessary. So I think it's important to share the insights about what is happening. But 2, if marketing goes and has a customer conversation and finds out that, like, I'm making this up, but finds out, or sales goes and has a customer conversation and they're like, you know what? This HCP does not want to see an MSL. They're really cool with just talking to a field rep. That's an important insight to capture and share out so that we don't make a mistake. Or vice versa, which sometimes happens is MSL goes, has a great conversation. HCP says, this is cool. I don't want to see a rep. So we need to build that capability. Then though, here's the hardest part, I think, in organizations is you have to train. So it's really easy to orchestrate digital campaigns with data-driven insights. It's not so easy to change behaviors as it relates to customer engagement and then communication, and then doing very, very, very strong diligence on recording call stuff and sharing that out. That really is, I kind of think, the linchpin of data. Because, like, sort of thesis statement, you can buy all the data in the world and orchestrate all the most beautiful campaigns. And as long as you're paying attention to performance, you can optimize into what's the best. But if you're not enabling your field teams and encouraging them to take the opportunity to record that qualitative data, huge opportunity loss. So that's like on us to drive that training and drive that innovation and drive that support.
Excellent. Very well said. Any final thoughts before we move on to our next question? Well, I love the fact that you brought up kind of making these big investments, because the next topic I wanted to discuss is budget. Saraiyah, what advice would you have for companies who might be in our audience today, who are finding it difficult to execute a robust omni-channel strategy due to budgetary constraints? Is this something you're encountering with your clients? And yeah, any advice you could give?
What? There's budgetary constraints in pharma marketing?
No, just theoretical.
What? I had no idea. Yeah, definitely. Ben knows very well. We're waist deep in brand planning and tactical planning. I think everyone is for 2026. And I think each one of my clients has said, hey, our budgets are flat or we have budget cuts for next year. So if anyone on my team is online, they can back me up here. I would say 2 pieces of advice. First is to do more with less. So if you're on that tight budget, it's going to be really, really hard to build those tools I alluded to earlier that are necessary for proper Optichannel, omni-channel orchestration. The robust data ecosystems, the integrations, the infrastructure, the people. So instead of taking that on, figure out, to Ben's point earlier, how to invest or find those tools that can do some of that heavy lifting. And that applies to whether you're at a small biotech and you have a limited budget, or if you're at a large pharma and they've told you to find some efficiencies, what we like to call them. And then I would say my second piece of advice is, I mentioned it earlier, is to focus on the quality of engagement over the quantity. Optichannel marketing means finding that optimal channel mix for a specific audience, and it's based in real-world data, real-time data. That means that your message is much more likely to break through that noise when you're serving it somewhere where you know an HCP is likely to click and likely to engage. And when you can do this at a scale, we see cost savings across the board. The reason why we have 100% client renewals is that we save our clients money and we help them make money. We help to drive prescription lift. On average, we're seeing 20 to 30% cost savings when using that Optichannel approach instead of doing that traditional always on media, and stronger ROI. So that would be my advice.
Excellent. And Ben, kind of coming back to you, you mentioned some really important things for folks to take into account when they are investing into their data. Is there anything else you can share with us on how teams can better use their channel and affinity analytics to achieve improved ROI?
Sure, this is one of my favorites. So, specific to digital experiences, right? Affinity data allows you to figure out the specific channels and tactics that you need to orchestrate to deliver a behavior change or a business outcome. Years ago, when you were thinking about digital experiences or traditional media experiences, it was really about reach, right? Reach and frequency. So you would buy audiences and have a reasonable degree of hope that you were reaching the right folks. Today, we don't have to do that. So not only can we identify when an HCP is at a moment that matters to us, we also can identify where to engage them and what to engage them with. So now your cost becomes, I don't know, 1/10 of what it used to be to deliver the same outcome, because we have that precision that really is sort of right Optichannel. So I would say, like, make sure that when you're building out experiences and you're looking at affinity and you're sort of building out the plan against that affinity, that you're also open to hearing that just because something in the media plan that was always on had a really high click-through rate doesn't necessarily show up in an affinity model. That doesn't mean it's bad. It means that the data exists that shows us that this channel tactic, whatever, has the propensity to drive an outcome. And being open to that differentiated way of thinking is really how you can be more efficient with your budget through that sort of Optichannel experience. And I will also say, Saraiyah can probably echo this, those conversations around affinity-based sort of program design, in addition to our other data points, can be the most sticky, because you'll hear someone say, wow, you're recommending this publisher, this EHR, and this thing because of high affinity and likelihood to produce outcomes. But in the past, we did this thing, which is a competitor of that thing, and it had a really high click-through rate and a low CPM. So I'm just not comfortable with it. And so then you have to go down the path, which is so important, because right, bring your marketing teams along for the journey. Go down the path and explain the wheres and the whys and the difference, and gain true partnership and alignment. And 9 times out of 10, you'll be able to trial the different opportunity that was modeled through affinity data, and then you can show the results.
Yeah, I would say
yes.
then
the results are there. Yes, the results are there, right? Like we have the data to show the results.
Yeah, Ben knows that I think we've personally navigated that experience together before. I think another piece when you're having that conversation with your marketers is typically they're referring to like an always on campaign. When you're bringing in triggers, what that data is telling you is that, hey, this HCP has an eligible patient for your brand. So you want to make sure that at that moment in time, you're sending out messaging at a place where you know they're going to be. Even if, in an always on campaign, another, vendor may have worked out for a trigger campaign. It's all about optimizing that reach and that frequency at those places where you know the HCP is going to engage. And that builds on the surround sound that the always on campaigns do. So they're aware and they know that your brand exists, but now that you have an eligible patient, it's like thinking like, oh, I want to buy a new watch. And now you're seeing all these watch ads, on your feed. Now I'm, oh, okay, wow. What kind of microchip? Now I really want to click. So that's what we do on the pharma side.
Now I'll be getting advertisement for watches here coming. Nick, I saw you nodding your head along as Saraiyah was speaking. Anything that resonated or any thoughts before we move on?
That was really well said. Totally agree. No notes.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, still sticking with you, Nick. Earlier in the conversation, we talked about how capabilities and functionalities have changed for omnichannel executives from 5 years ago to now. You also brought up the role of AI coming into play in building the cadence for the HCP journey. So coming back to those ideas, how have you navigated incorporation of artificial intelligence into your role as a marketer, and how difficult has it been to build that skill set and know where to begin?
Yeah, good question. So I think 5 years ago, it was all about channel activation, building the infrastructure, and then also like selling the idea internally to a C-suite and also partners and stakeholders that haven't really dove into it. Then there's also been like kind of skill building around just omnichannel, a lot of coordination, and now it's evolved again. So before, I would say I was probably acting more like a campaign manager, and I was just coming originally from a bit of a multi-channel world, but then I was thinking about omni-channel campaigns, thinking like an omni-channel campaign person. Now the way I think about things and the way I kind of act, and it's been a little bit of an uphill journey, but I'm adapting to it. I think is just be more of like a data-driven strategist. So there is a lot of AI tools, internal, external, that give me the analytics quickly. So then the challenge is think about all of my orchestrations, think about the Optichannel approach, think about my message map, my next best action models, but think about it from a very, very data-driven approach and start there, period. And then I think the other part is when I'm thinking about building journeys, start really building the journeys with the thinking that it can be automated via an AI engine, which has also been a little bit tricky with this notion of like, you want to get to the N of one HCP experience. So it would be, instead of thinking about it like, I'm going to just send these banner ads or these emails with this efficacy message out there to the HCPs. I'm going to select a micro segment. I'm going to send them this sequence of messages using the AI engine. If for some reason they leave that sequence and become something else, go into another bucket, then I have to think about what to do in that sense, and then work with my very talented AI engineer team to help me think these things through, raising your hand a lot and saying, I don't fully understand this portion of it. Maybe can you help me understand what the best practices are for how to use an AI engine? And then also just the other kind of shift from kind of my own learning and I guess the way I work with folks is all of that also takes a lot of cross-functional team efforts. So once I start thinking from that AI journey optimization perspective, next is to start, when I build out these plans, to start promoting them and talking to them, from everyone from like MLR to my media partners to my brand leads, to make sure everybody's on board, to make sure I'm not missing anything, and keep kind of selling AI Optichannel approaches now, whereas before I would be really thinking about Omnichannel. So it's been quite a bit of a change, and that's the fun part about marketing. But I think the good thing is that there is a lot of excitement from almost every stakeholder I've worked with right now that's been about the capability of AI, because who doesn't want to get behind less noise for your customer, more efficiency, less expenses, more kind of agile ways of working. So thankfully, the experiences that I've had recently have been really just about everyone's on board with it. So that's been a very good overall kind of the part that's been amazing, that people are very on board with using AI for journey optimization and Optichannel.
Excellent. Ben, any additional thoughts on how you are incorporating artificial intelligence into your role as a marketer?
Absolutely. I was going to joke and be like, we're against it. I'm just kidding. It's everywhere. So I always like to think of AI as a potential solution for any business challenge, but you have to find the fit for purpose solution. So here's where we think AI currently, but this is an evolving mindset, right? It can change next week, really delivers value. One is sort of the optimal cadence at which to deliver insights from a next best action perspective is important. The optimal time with which to deliver specific communications to customers is really helpful. More importantly, I think, is content. So if and when you have an AI content engine that is connected to your digital asset manager and you have a ton of modularized and approved content, you can deliver really coolly, did I just make up a word? Really cool personalized experiences. So if, for example, you are able to identify the reasons why something is occurring, and you have content built or modularized for those reasons why, in relatively real time, then you can deliver content and experiences that map to those reasons why. And that's really, really important, because sometimes those reasons why are like objections or blockers, and you can deliver the super helpful hint on how to overcome that. It also, I think, this is a little bit ahead of this, but bear with me. I also think I always say, like, we can build omnichannel experiences for days. We have all the data, we have all the things, life is great and wonderful, let's make it happen. But at the end of the day, without content, those experiences cannot live up to their full potential. So in addition to that AI content piece, I think something that's really, really important is like MLR kind of content approval automation through some sort of AI, because your approval windows and your approval time goes down super, super quickly. And both of those things together do two things: quicker content, but also back to the budget conversation, it's much, much more cost effective, because now, right, we're reducing time, we're reducing resources, we're able to push things through more quickly, and we're able to develop things without having to go through like the traditional way of starting with your agency and building something super custom and then having to spend all that extra dollars. So those to me are kind of like our sort of North Stars, but AI is everywhere. And I guarantee you, if we were to have this conversation 1 year from today, I'd have a whole bunch of new answers.
Should I say coolly and keep the trend going?
Yeah, coolly, that's my new, whatever the heck that means, that's my new one.
Yes, coolly. Saraiyah, would love to hear from your perspective what you're seeing for your clients and how they are utilizing AI with the help of your organization.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, to Ben's point, can we schedule a talk like a year from now?
Yeah, let's do it. Everybody, right now, put it on your calendar.
Everyone mark their calendars for July
Yes.
17, 2026. Nick, I hope you're available.
I am.
But yeah. To Ben's point, that's actually one of the offerings that we do offer is AI-based banners, like ingesting a client's CVA and pulling out messages that are already MLR approved and putting them into a way that, obviously meets all the FDA regulations. But to Ben's piece, the delay of, you obviously have to get it pushed through MLR before you can push it live. But absolutely, that's one of the first ways. And then the second way is through our orchestration engine. So it's making sure that HCPs are getting these very personalized journeys. So pulling from the affinity data, if I know that Dr. Ben Clark loves endemic display, I'm not going to send him an email on my first contact. I'm going to target him on the best endemic display vendor. And then if his second preference is email, then we'll send an email. And then if he doesn't engage, maybe we'll echo. And then if he engages, we'll go to the third preference. And from there. If Dr. Nick, if we know he does like email, we're sending him an email first. So AI helps us orchestrate in that real time, in that personalized way. But layering on that AI content piece, I think it's very clearly going to be the next step in making sure you can truly diversify that next best message.
And is AI able to help kind of create some of these profiles for Dr. Nick and Dr. Ben, kind of project or predict how those doctors will respond, and or based on previous data? Is that correct? Is that how that
Yeah.
Is that helpful? Yeah. I know we kind of talked about earlier on how that might be a way that AI is helping, but is there anything you can add to that point?
I believe that, and then the first party, the technical integration, so we can actually see where the HCPs are going, where they're engaging, and then that helps us to kind of aggregate these HCP affinity profiles, which then AI then helps us to orchestrate. I see
Wonderful.
I see a question that kind of, supports this from Devanshi. Apology if I didn't get your name correct, but how do you know which channel is best for each customer? And how do you get that insight? And it's from that first party integration. So when you're getting that data, you can buy affinity data from multiple different places. It's 2025. But what you want to do is you want to make sure that that data is not static, because like I said, audience behavior, individual behavior, it changes very quickly. Last year, I loved Instagram. Yes, this year, I don't have it on my phone. So you really want to make sure that the data that you're getting is dynamic and it's getting updated in real time, or else the strategies you build on static data, it may not be valid a year from now or 18 months from now.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, we have some time now for answering some audience questions, and I want to say thank you to our audience for submitting some great questions so far. If you haven't already, please use that panel to the side to submit anything for our speakers. So our first audience question, how do you think about integrating Optichannel across customer types?
Oh, I'll dive in. Honestly, this assumes you have your infrastructure built where you can ingest data and can use that data to deliver experiences. But assuming that's there, it's really all about the customer journey blueprint and then identifying which signal you want to leverage and making sure that you're investing in channels and tactics that have high affinity. It's really that simple. And once you do that and compare your new way of working to how things were done in the past, you'll really see a positive delta, both in terms of reduced costs, but increased ROI or increased growth. But it's infrastructure, data, and like right channel to the audience member. And obviously the right content goes without saying. But I think like not being able to speak with the questioner, but across all customers, I don't think the approach is any different, right? Like I think that's just the way it goes. I would say, I know this is an HCP focused thing, but on the patient side, it's a little bit more difficult, right? Because with HIPAA laws, you can't necessarily, from a digital marketing perspective, hit one-to-one communications with patients. You can oftentimes with CRM, and depending upon whether or not you have your own hub or you outsource it, or if you do it through specialty pharmacy and you own that data and you ask for HIPAA consent, you can do a lot of things there from like a CRM perspective. But from a digital perspective, that for the foreseeable future, and probably even worse, will be segment at best and audience level at best. And that's just a reality of the way it goes. So I will say, make those one-to-one experiences that much more meaningful, that much more dynamic, that much more relevant, and that much more connected.
Very well said. Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Ben. I think from our perspective, and thanks, Nathan, this is a really, really great question that I think is top of mind for many marketers, but it all comes down to your segments. Are you looking at different specialists? Are you looking at HCPs? Are you looking at MDs versus NPs? Are you looking at DTC audiences? Do you need us to build lookalike audiences to Ben's perspective to maintain compliance? And then once you understand that segment, you have to understand where that audience is spending their time. And that's how we implement. Once we identify their affinity, we're looking at which channels they're going to, and then we're looking at which vendors they're going to, and then taking a step further, what content they're most likely to engage in. And making sure that you're tailoring that message to, and that content of that message to that specific customer type is very critical to ensure that you're really getting that optimal engagement.
Wonderful. For our next question, are there differences in how to use Optichannel if you're getting ready to launch? Nick, I know you had mentioned this a little bit earlier on in the panel. Anything more you can share on that topic?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think there may be a little bit of a easier approach for Optichannel when you launch. So, you want to when you launch an awareness message like a now available, now approved, you probably want to go very broad with that. You may have actually some budget probably at your company to really get that message out. And then you want to maybe reach out with some MOA messaging, things like that. When you get the insights back from how you did with those broader messaging, I think that can start really shaping your Optichannel campaign, because then you can see that where among your target list engagements and even across social, where that information is kind of like less available, what worked and what didn't, and then start building journeys about that. And then if you start building your own customer, I would almost say customer types. I think that's the key, because you may not have your segments ready because your ATU data may not be ready, right, to create the traditional segments, but you would have information on what worked and what didn't from a very broad reach experience. And then you say, well, these folks have they're not really responding to my emails for some reason, but they are clicking on some banners. These folks aren't really responding to anything. Bring in some sales data, maybe there are no CHCPs, and then you start building that way and coming up with an Optichannel approach to them to not overwhelm them, but just get them with the right tactics that work. And that would be a pretty successful first year before you have your true market segmentation, which typically come a little bit later after launch. So that'll be my approach.
Ben, Saraiyah, anything to add?
One thing, and Nick, you sort of alluded to this, but when you launch, you can't talk about your drug before you launch. You can only talk about disease state, right? So At the time you get approval, you have to make a splash and create enough awareness or tonnage in the marketplace so that when you orchestrate a trigger-bound program, you aren't spending money and time on triggers creating that awareness. I always think of things as time-bound and trigger-bound, and always-on media is sort of time-bound, right? Like it's always on, but at the time of launch, that always-on stuff needs to be pretty heavy because you need to create a decent amount of awareness in a relatively short period of time so that you can as soon as possible convert, if you will, to a more Optichannel approach. And it's really like a bell curve. It's sort of like, I don't know, 6-9 months after launch. 6 months is when you can stop saying now approved, but 6-9 months, you create the brand splash, and then you can start to flip the switch by pulling people down the funnel. And it's more simple. It's more than just simply retargeting. It's leveraging data-driven moments to pull people through the funnel. But yeah, that's an important piece to sort of like create awareness in the marketplace at time of launch so that your trigger-based program can do its job really effectively. And I have
you get such rich data, right? It's like that's good stuff.
And we have a total case study for a thing that Saraiyah and I worked on years ago. Well, I don't know if you worked on it, you might, but a thing where we stopped using always on and went to just trigger-based media. And it was probably in a place where the brand awareness wasn't as high as it should have been. And while Optichannel still worked and was still effective, the efficacy kind of eroded a little bit because, in my opinion, there was never enough awareness created around it.
Yeah, and I can build on that. Ben, sometimes I feel like you're in my brain. You just say what I'm
Well, I think you were thinking about the same thing, but I was careful to not give too much away.
No, but I think Optichannel, for launch, yes, but I think Optichannel is effective no matter which part of the product lifecycle you're in, whether you're launching or you're a more mature brand. At the heart of it is strategy and data. So it's essential to determine what is your audience, what are the optimal channels? Are you a second line therapy? You need predictive analytics to kind of engage HCPs when a patient is about to progress. Are you in a competitive indication and you need to fight for share of voice? I think another piece is to really making sure that at the end of the day, yeah, you have your launching, you're now approved, but I run medical affairs campaign. So priming the market, like Optichannel is effective with the DSA, disease state awareness campaign. And especially if you're coming in for a new indication or a new way of treating a certain indication. Ultimately, it can help you set up for a more successful launch. One of our clients, I want to say Jacqueline, if you're on the line, but one of her clients, she was as a launch brand, and they achieved 3 times the revenue that the analysts forecasted that first year post-launch. And we did the full thing, the DSA, the unbranded, the now approved, always on and triggered. And all of it was based in Optichannel. So it's very critical, I think, regardless of the product lifecycle, but definitely useful at launch.
Excellent. And we have about a minute left for one final question. How does precision targeting work in rare disease?
Well, that's a good one.
Ooh, I have such a fun story. Okay, really rare disease for, like, we're talking like hundreds of patients a year, right? So precision targeting is so important because ultimately you need to be where the patient is, and most HCPs see like 1 every 2 years, okay? So that's why the data signal is so important. But what I would say in these instances where you have precision, where you need precision, if you're using claims data, you have a delay. So to the extent that you can find other data sources like lab data, you oftentimes will get a precise signal about some sort of test result that would indicate the need for the therapy before pathology even informs the HCP, and you're able to start that experience that early. That's why it's so very, very important. Use case on a drug I used to work on, I think something like 90% of all new patient starts were the result of what I just talked about, because from diagnosis to getting on treatment was like a week or something. And so you really needed not only the precision, but the speed.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Unfortunately, that is all the time that we have for today. If we didn't get to your question, we'll do our best to follow up after today's webinar. As a reminder, a recording of the session will be available on demand within 24 hours. I want to thank all of our panelists for joining us and providing their great insights. for PharmaForceIQ for supporting the discussion today, and to our audience for joining us and submitting some great questions for more thought. So with that, thank you on behalf of Fierce Pharma, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Take care.
Thank you so much, Kelly. Thanks, Ben and
Thank
Nick.
you.
Thank you.